The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
And I'm going to act surprised.
There you are. Oh, a very hot day pour with an Eco Terreno Sauvignon Blanc.
Alexander Valley Sauvignon Blanc on a hot day.
Nice.
Yes.
That's like
It's only supposed to be 104 today.
that's the only wine you want today.
What the hell? Hey,
Maybe
Mark
some rosé.
Lyon, welcome, man.
Thank you
how
for
nice
having
of you
me
to come over
here,
here this
John.
morning and talk with us. Owner and jack of all trades, winemaker, grower, real estate guy, whatever it takes to make great wine these days, huh?
Yeah, well, it took many years, John, to
Overnight success in 3 decades.
I mean, it's you know what? None of this matters. Let's talk about working at Sebastiani when you worked there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was like 37 years, if you can believe that.
Really?
I worked for the Sebastiani family, and then later, last 9 years for Bill Foley.
Right. So when
you worked there under both regimes.
Yes, I did.
So can you talk a little bit about Sebastiani in the beginning, when you're
Sure.
beginning with them, and what it was like in town? And you know, I mean, it was very much a big part of the community because it was here.
Yes. Well, I started in 79. It was the shortest job interview I ever had in my life. And
Was it with?
it was with Jim Carter, and all we did is sit around, and he was, how should I say, checking things out and making comments, and they just turned around and said, "Oh, do you want to work for us?" I said, "Yes." "How soon can you start?" 2 weeks. "See you in 2 weeks." And
Boom,
and
done.
kaboom, I'm in Sonoma.
Where are you from?
I was born on Air Force Base in Victorville, California, so I'm a California native. However, I grew up in the Scottsdale Paradise Valley area, and then I got the wine bug when I was 16 years old, thanks to Europe and grandparents who indulged me. And
Nice.
then
Always nice to have a set of those.
Oh, yeah.
And
Trust me.
do you have a memory of what those early wines were, or do you remember
yes,
what they
I
drank?
do.
Oh, good.
And that was going to Italy and having Brunello in Rome and Barolo in Rome and Chianti Classico in Florence and whatever they were serving up in Venice at the time. But I was really quite intrigued, particularly with the red wines, and I was a little mesmerized with the Chianti having this black rooster on there, Gallo Nero, to guarantee quality. So that just all intrigued me. And then you just have, for instance, Chianti with spaghetti and meatballs, and that just really gets you right between the eyes. And wow, this tastes really good.
Not to date yourself, but what year were you in it? Like when you were 16? So what were those wines? You know, they were sort of like, what were those wines like then?
They were definitely lighter than modern day standards. They were probably 12-ish alcohol to low 13 maybe. But they were not really big like we've all moved toward bigger, riper wines, and particularly 70s, 60s, they were lighter wines. If you look at alcohol levels of like BV Private Reserve in 68 was only 12.4 alcohol, or
Good wines for a 16-year-old to be drinking, basically.
Yeah.
You know, a little side note, the last 3 days, the Tour de France, or the first 3 days of the Tour de France this year have been in Italy. And yesterday they went through.
Is that a first?
No, it always start. Well, it doesn't always start. It started a number of years out of the country.
Okay.
The first couple days. 3 days is pretty extensive.
Yeah.
Last year they did Denmark. It was 2 days or something. But they just went through Piedmonte, and man, the sheer number of vineyards is unbelievable. And and I've never been there, so I can't reference it. But it just seems like there's just these huge open expanse of valleys, and there's just vines and homes not homes everywhere, but vines and homes. And the other thing that struck me about it is it's so green. Like there's not strips of death, at least not from the helicopter, everywhere. It's just stunning. Anyway, back to you, Mark. Sorry.
Yes. So
that concludes your Tour de France update. Today's episode.
When do they get to Paris, Bart?
They're not finishing in Paris this year because the
Really?
Olympics. They're finishing in
right.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
So it's very,
France.
very unique. The whole thing's like kind of all in southern France. There's, they're paying. It's a really hard
All in all, I'd rather be in Nice
Yeah.
than Paris.
Especially, right?
Yeah.
Like
you're right about
the weather
that.
at the moment. I don't
Yeah.
know what it's like there, but if it's anything like it is here,
Bad and
I'd rather
packed.
be in Nice also.
It was so crowded when we were there, and they were saying it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And
Oh, because the Olympics and
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, the Olympics is big time, and
I'm going to have to talk to you. We're heading to Italy in November. My wife has some business in Milan. Then we're going to hit Florence and Rome. It should be a lot of fun. Take a few weeks and just do it.
yeah, definitely
First time
check
I've
out
been
the
there.
art.
First time.
So family introduced you to wine. Your grandparents
Thanks for getting us back on track. Bart.
traveled. Well, I was the one that distracted us. So
Yeah,
started to gather information and started tasting wine. Came back to the United States. Graduated high school from where?
from Saguaro High School in Scottsdale, Arizona.
And then what did you do after that?
And then I went to UC Davis because it was regarded as having the best wine program in the country, if not the world. Gladly, they accepted.
You knew you
me.
wanted to.
Oh yeah, when I was 16, I said I'm just in the idea of being a pediatrician or a doctor, and I want to be a winemaker. My parents were very happy I made that decision.
Were they involved in
ironically,
wine also?
No.
I mean, you might find that in this day and age with Joel Gott's son, graduated high school, went to Cal Poly studying, that. But at 16?
At 16.
Not growing up around it. I mean, not growing up in it. That's very cool.
Wine is fascinating.
Yeah.
As soon as I got home, I was just reading all the books and magazines, and it was just all really interesting to me. Of course, the wine itself, and fortunately, my parents allowed me to continue to explore other wines, California wines, Mirasu wines. Their whites were fantastic from Monterey. And also, of course, Inglenook Cask Reserve Cab, BV Private Reserve, Heights Cabs. Those were really, really good wines. And I'm kind of a bit nostalgic for them still.
I'm cracking up. The thought of like a 16-year-old in Scottsdale reading Wine Spectator or whatever.
No, how about this?
Pre-Wine Spectator and drinking, BV and Heights Private Reserve.
But were you reading textbooks also?
Yes, I love Hugh Johnson's World Atlas of Wine. That was the most fascinating read of them all.
Yeah,
Not comic books.
That's a book on history, really, right? Like
30 magazines. Like 16.
Yeah, I'm reading about what
Batman.
Pauillac is and what Burgundy is.
Yeah.
Malolactic fermentation.
Yeah. Well, not exactly.
You
so
didn't
much
get technical. It was just sort of cultural.
It was definitely cultural, but it was also, I was fascinated with French and Italian wines because we finished our vacation in Paris. I had, of course, Burgundy, a Pommard, and I had Bordeaux. I think it was Chateau Béchevet, Saint-Julien. So I remember those wines really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so they just stuck in my mind, and said, these are fantastic. And then you come to California, and there's more bolder, riper. Wow, I love the fruit character from California Cab, and certainly the nice fruity whites were really good at that time. And so I was really quite intrigued, and then moved more toward drier whites later on in the late 70s and early 80s. So that's where it started. But Sonoma had a lot of appeal to me because I thought Sonoma was really the best wine region at the time, and certainly happy that I got accepted and had a job here so I could start. And then my father said, well, since you're going to be staying here, young man, let's buy a vineyard together. So we bought a vineyard in Alexander Valley in 1980 that was planted by the late Rodney Strong. In fact, these Sauv Blanc vines are from the original early 70s planting. It's still on St. George rootstock.
And it's tasting beautiful.
Yeah.
Really nice this morning.
So Mark, at that point, when you came to Sebastiani, what was your? I mean, was your job do whatever someone told you to do, or did you have, or did you work in the lab? Were you, on the crush pad? Did you start during harvest?
It was initially working on the bottling line for a few years. I was hired as a quality control supervisor at the time, so we made sure that bugs weren't in the bottle of wine, the labels are on and not crooked, that the bottling line moves efficiently but not making blunders while doing so.
Not throwing bottles off the line.
Right. Just standard. And then, of course, I was getting bored with that and expressed that, and said I'd really like to move on to production. So I moved over in 1984 to production side at Sebastiani.
What were the Sebastiani wines that you were making in those days?
Ironically, we were making wines from what is now the Bedrock estate at the time.
That's interesting.
And
a whole bunch from Cundy.
A lot from Cundy.
Right? I mean, there was a point where like almost everything Cundy sold went to Sebastiani.
And San Giacomo Pinot. Mm-hmm. We made a boatload of Pinot Noir Blanc, or what was called Eye of the Swan. It sold like hot cakes back in the late 70s to up until the mid 80s.
And that was just like a light pressed Pinot Noir?
Yeah, we would just squeeze the bejesus out of it. If there was some color, we would ferment with carbon to knock out the color. Right. So we made this palish. August came up with the idea, Eye of the Swan, because it had a little slight coppery hue to it, and it was dry. It was selling well, and then the sales went down when White Zin came on, as people said, "Oh, I kind of like to have a sweeter wine," and so our Pinot Noir Blanc sales went down. But it was a nice boom bust period for about 8 years. We made just a lot of Blanc de Noir back then.
Yeah. And then at that point, you were still were bringing in fruit, because it was at the point of you were still doing like 1.5s, a lot of 1.5s, or was that later?
First what happened is Sam took over from August, and Sam's was really trying to drive it toward a premium direction, and he really had the right vision at the time. I remember a famous thing he did. He grabbed a couple of jugs like this, and he says, "Welcome to the future," and he dropped them. And he was trying to get people to realize we got to get out of the jug business, because we were bottling 4-liter Mountain Chablis or 1.5-liter Mountain Rosé. And Sam wanted to go more upscale, so we bottled magnums of country Pinot Noir, country Zinfandel, and moving away from the screw cap idea on premiumizing. And really, I do want to do a quick pitch that's really important historical. August Sebastiani really started the fighting varietal. He's the
Not
one.
according to Bruno Benziger.
Oh, Bruno.
No, I'm agreeing
I
with
think
you.
August started before Bruno ever came to Sonoma County.
When was
I know.
August's reign? When did he?
Well, he was there up until 1980. And prior to that, well, he started when he was probably
born?
young and born and
When Samuel made him go to work.
yeah,
Samuele.
exactly.
Samuele, yeah.
And so August really launched them into being a large winery. August had very set thoughts about how to make wine, what a premium wine was. And he would say, I'd sooner chew on a toothpick than have oak in my wine. So he was very opposed to buying barrels. So as soon as August passes away, Sam is in charge.
Knowing old Italians, he was probably very opposed to buying anything.
Yeah. Well, that too. But certainly wine oak barrels, if you ever did that, you're on his list.
I mean,
so
it was famously. So you were in there. Was it still like those the wooden tanks?
Yes, we had upright redwood tanks.
Yeah.
We still have them in our wine museum there at Sebastiani Winery. But yeah, that was August's idea of aging fine wine.
Right.
So his
Beautiful tanks, John.
yeah,
They're
I'm sure.
they held out well too.
What a treasure in town, though. I mean, it was so local. It's just down 8 blocks, right? You know, and it was the main one in town, or
that
the
was
only one
era
in town, right?
back then
Yeah.
for him. So Sam immediately bought French American oak barrels and started, rather than having North Coast appellation, he would have Sonoma County or Sonoma Valley appellation wine. So he really brought Sonoma County as an AVA into Sebastiani.
I mean, there are.
And this is the 80s, early 80s.
Yeah, this is the early 80s when Sam took over in, I'd say, mid-1980.
I mean, I would say that there's that era of, you know, you'll see someone will show a picture of like a Sebastiani Barbera from the 80s throughout the 80s, probably, right? And
Yes.
and other, like, you know, Sonoma Valley fruit that I always assumed was like Cundy,
Right.
or who knows? I mean, at that point,
I think they also got Monte Rosso fruit, right? Was there any point that Monte Rosso fruit ended up down there?
Not really. We didn't. Pretty much Monte Rosso, a lot of that fruit went to Louis Martini,
Well,
had
to Martini.
vineyards up there, and he would make Monte Rosso wine.
I don't think they got.
There was some mountain. What was the mountain vineyard? Or they just said mountain.
Yeah, they
Had it on the label, Sam.
what happened, Sam, is that August coined mountain Pinot Noir, and then Sam changed it from mountain to country.
Right.
So he would say country Pinot Noir on his new upscaled Magnum cork finish.
Could you throw out do you remember how many tons of fruit you guys would see during that era?
Oh, yeah. We would get up to about, maximum was maybe 23,000 tons.
23,000
And I'd be in
tons.
charge of having to process all that fruit, and how are you going to do it?
What do
Yeah,
you guys
and so
do?
Kenwood was like Kenwood when I was
50?
there, it was like, you know, between 3,000 and 4,000 tons.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is just the significance of how huge that
Oh
was.
yeah, I mean,
How much did you do last year?
maybe 60.
60 tons, Bart.
I mean, Enterprise
Way less than that.
and Enterprise Vineyards harvested probably about 1,200
Yeah. Yeah.
across 30 properties.
So for the listeners to go out and hear us talking about like these vineyards, these specific vineyards, there were a whole bunch of big vineyards that you guys were getting fruit from.
Yes.
And it was, it was an amazing business at its time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask
go ahead.
about the purchase of the vineyard in 1980. What was acreage back then?
It was about 122 acre ranch with about 66 acres of Cabernet and 27 acres of Sauvignon Blanc. And it was a bit of a fire sale because they could not sell all the wine they were making when Rodney Strong was with Sonoma Vineyard. So he turned back the lease to the grape growers at the time, or who he leased the land from, and say, here's a vineyard, here's the bank loan, good luck with that, we're out. And so the farmer couldn't sustain that. And so this is David Black. So we bought it in 1980, and my father, who is a brilliant businessman, came up with a way of financing it without having to borrow it all at 18 or 19% interest rate. So we bought for only $10,000 a planted acre and maybe $1,500 for the riparian land. So you don't find those prices anymore, particularly in Alexander Valley or Sonoma Valley.
10,000 per plant.
Yeah,
It's
much different economics. So through the years, many years, it's owned free and clear. So I don't.
And so once you guys bought it, who did you sell the fruit to?
Everyone and everybody. A lot of it I sold to Gallo at I forget, Martini, not Louis. It was some other custom crush place out in Forestville.
Martini, not Martini Rossi.
No, it was some kind of rim with Martini.
Yeah.
Anyway, sold it for like $400 a ton, $450 a ton on Cabernet. Cabernet was a tough sell.
Martini and Pratti.
Martini, thank you. Martini and Pratti. And that was really an offshoot of Gallo. And so that's how I got muddled through. And then starting in the mid to late 80s, I started selling Cabernet to Sebastiani and Chateau Saint Jean, and at better prices. And Sonoma County AVA is where the wines went into. So, those were my early clients.
Price mark of $450 a ton? Wasn't that when the government was setting the price of Cab?
No.
Okay,
It
after
was
that.
the market.
Okay.
The market was soft for Cabernet and Pinot Noir. That's why August back then decided to do Mountain Pinot Noir and Mountain Cab, because all this overplanted acreage, he could convert that into an economical or fighting varietal. So that's what really spurred that on, was the vast overplanting, particularly of Cabernet and Pinot Noir in California during that boom-bust period.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like today.
Sounds
a little chilling.
Sounds
Yeah, I
familiar.
mean, we were talking about that before we got on, on mic, and
Right.
it's scary times, right?
Yeah, a little bit of a wine glut, particularly in the less expensive wine. But even North Coast, there's a lot of bulk wine out there, and they're trying to figure
Grapes
out
for
how-
sale.
Sam, was it Silicon Valley Bank that had the numbers that we saw about the glut of grapes on the market? I think this was last summer.
Probably.
We were talking about it.
Oh, and then we had somebody from your friend from
Glenn Proctor
from Ciati, yeah,
Yes.
talking about that also. And there's a
I'd
lot
like
of
to see
vineyards
those
out there.
numbers today.
There's a lot of vineyards, and a lot of vineyards that are going into wines that aren't selling.
Mark, so bring us up to speed with your new project,
Sure,
Eco
sure.
Terreno, the name, and then tell us
How it happened.
Obviously, you start off
Sure.
the whole thing. It began with a bird on your website, and I
Yes.
think that's
Yeah.
important.
Well,
It was a bee. It's the kind of bee environmental approach. What happened is I went to France and went to vineyards that farm organically and biodynamically, and I asked a simple question: is how's it going? And 2, was it worth it? And 3, are you making better wine as a result? So I went to mostly Bordeaux, but I did go to Cahors and I did go to Gaillac, and just asked them, you all are farming organically, you converted from conventional to organic. Was it worth the extra effort? And just having their perspective. And because there's very few at the time organic farming, there's certainly, Benzinger was a big spearhead of it, and certainly Couturi, but really there was very few California examples. And
the folks up in Mendocino, right?
Yeah, Mendocino. Yeah, there was a pretty good amount of
Sonoma
organic.
County, yeah, right.
So I just went there and I was impressed. I went to Poney-Canet in Pauillac, which was biodynamic at the time. And they were really trying to improve the quality of their wine through biodynamic and organic farming and winemaking practices. So they have really, it was intriguing, and thought, okay, well, I come back and I look at my vineyard farmed conventionally, and I notice underneath the vine it was all yellow, and then I noticed some birds eating there, and going, well, gee, would I eat there too? And so I realized it's really, I don't want to be spraying herbicides and pesticides in the vineyard, and let alone for health reasons, but also for, quality. I saw improvements, and particularly in France when I was going around these estates, they were making better wines as a result. So to me, I just decided I'm going to farm organically. Yeah. And so I fired the vineyard manager and hired a vineyard management company that could farm. So in 2014, we converted to organic and also biodynamic. We had to wait 3 years to cleanse the soil.
Right.
And then 2017, we were certified organic and biodynamic, and we have been since.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember when Kenwood had some organic vineyards back then, and John Sheila used to always say that they only did it for one reason, because they couldn't put it on the labels, really. They could put grown by, but he said, we're doing it for our employees. That's why we're doing it, and sometimes I think people forget about that part, that, right. And then, so how did that first year go? And who was it that you ended up hiring, did you say?
Yeah, it was vineyard management company, and the name escapes me, but the person who was Daphne Amory was the one who was
didn't Daphne
Daphne worked for Enterprise for a while.
Yeah, and worked
I can't remember where she went.
Benziger, I think.
Yeah.
With Alan York.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was the one guiding us toward farming biodynamically. At first, it was going to be just organic, and then we thought, well, why not go all the way and let's see what happens. So we bought the new equipment and berry horns stuffed with cow manure. Yes, I have to be careful what I say here.
You do not actually have to be careful with it.
There's no
filters. Let it rip.
No.
Okay, all right.
With really stinky cow shit?
Yeah.
Is that what you
really
wanted to say?
Could actually specifically be bullshit.
We had to wear gloves.
No, it can't. It has to be cow shit.
Yeah, it's from
has to be
lactated. I know. Thank you.
So we're stuffing full
Still
of
bullshit.
doo-doo.
How many of these do you have
horns.
to put out there?
What?
How many of these horns do you have to bury?
Well, there
on
isn't
how much
a
you
set number. I'd say we have a big party and everybody participates, and probably about 120, 130, and we make our prep sprays after it's been, how should I say, seasoned or aged.
Fermented. Elevage.
Come on.
Shitty elevage.
That's part of the biodynamic intrigue.
Yes. growing up around cows, I remember how bad cow manure is. And remembering what the manure is that you put into that horn and coming back a half a year later and finding out what came out of it. It's amazing because it doesn't smell at all like manure.
Yeah, it transforms. It actually smells good.
Yes, it smells
like
amazing.
like really good soil.
Smells like good soil.
And
Yes.
and you know, but there's definitely some spirituality that has to go into that also.
There's a lot of more spirituality and rituals, etc., with biodynamic farming as opposed to organic CCOF certified. They don't require those.
It's interesting when you were in France and visiting all these different wineries or farms anyway. What were they telling you about how they specifically realized that this was better for their business?
It was better for their business in Bordeaux. From a marketing PR point of view too. When I went to, let's say, Cahors or to Gaillac, it was more like, hey, we just don't want to spray pesticides, herbicides anymore. Yes, it's more work. Yes, I have to buy new and different equipment to do under-vine tilling and also to non-till rather than till. But in Bordeaux, it was more and more of a marketing ploy, in particular with Chateau Poney-Canet, which is trying to show itself to be a great wine. And so they needed a handle to show that. And they also, of course, were making their wines organically in the winery, too. So I think they realized there's a real tidal move. Certainly, we know Biz Leroy and Burgundy is a biodynamic and Chapoutier, and there was kind of a groundswell. This will make better quality wine if you farm biodynamically. So let's do it. It sounds really good. We can tell the wine writers, etc. So it was also a marketing ploy, but they did genuinely believe it does improve the quality of the wine grapes too.
As we do here.
Yes.
Better grapes make better wine.
I mean, I always
Healthier
like
vineyards make healthier fruit.
Right.
Survive, healthy vineyards survive 7 days of excessive heat better than a conventionally grown vineyard.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's just absolutely.
I mean, weeks like this are the weeks that make the extra work and the extra money really worth it.
Right. And I also always liked what Alan used to say, that he said, without the ability to fall back on these other things, you have to be very well organized and very well thought out. And just by doing that, you're going to grow better grapes. And then he would say, and then look at all the work we've done, and that always pays off.
I've always thought of the biodynamic specifically as just a better way to listen to what is happening, in the field and in your farm, in the vineyard. The amount of times that you're out there doing the preps and applying the preps and the, the guide of the other plants that you're planting to show you the health of your soils and the health of the vineyard and how much soil moisture is and things like that. That's where, filling your cow horns full of cow shit on the full moon closest to the solstice or the equinox is super important. But what you do to get there and what you do after that is that attention to detail in a biodynamic vineyard that really makes the difference.
Yeah.
If you miss the solstice, but the equinox by a couple of weeks, it'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that one. Every time I go to the vineyard, I was there yesterday as we were prepping ourselves for this big heat dome event. The more you're on the vineyard, the more you see things going on. It's so critical this time of year. And I feel very fortunate that we didn't pull too many or very little leaves at this point, given what's going on. And so we've really moved away from doing any leaf pulling, and now we're putting shade cloths in our overly exposed areas. We're crop thinning so the vines will have less stress. That's our priority right now. What I have our vineyard crew doing this week is
What are your expected highs in Alexander Valley this week?
it's going to be
pretty hot up
about
there.
107 today and 108 Wednesday, but it's going to hover between 106 and 108 through Sunday.
Is it fair to say Alexander Valley is the hottest appellation in Sonoma County?
Yeah, I think that would be a fair assessment,
Right.
Particularly,
Especially like Geyserville.
yeah. If you go north of Geyserville North, or you're going in north Dry Creek Valley on the flats, those are really the hot spots. Those are the warmest areas in Sonoma County. It would be considered by UC Davis standards to be a mid to sometimes high Region 3 climate, similar actually to Tuscany climate.
Interesting.
Very similar.
So when you were just to go back, because you made me think about it, when you were at Davis, were you with any of your classmates still in the business?
Oh, yes.
People like what era were you with?
Drop some names. Randall Graham.
Yeah, Randall Graham.
Randall Graham is classically trained.
Yes.
I thought he would have been
And Dave Ramey was there.
Yeah, so you were all of those
Friends of the pod.
Morrison, myself, of course.
Of course.
And,
I mean, three of those four
Bill
people have been on the
Davis.
podcast.
I know.
Bill Davis.
We got to get Kathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yes.
That's awesome.
A lot of, and they're still in the business.
Yeah, very
because
much
they
so.
either have their own winery or consulting business. So they're still going out. You know, Randall Graham's still active.
Or Gallows funding you.
Right.
Yeah, or one of the two.
Some combination thereof.
Tell us how you got the name Eco Terreno.
Yeah, eco is short for ecology, or in Espanol, ecología, and terreno means land or dirt in Spanish. So it was really trying to evoke, without sounding too hokey, and so I was trying to be a little bit more sophisticated with the name with it.
Ecology of the land, then.
Yeah, that's essentially it. Our logo is the bee because we're there to protect it and enhance it. We have a bee garden.
Thank you.
Also the
It's a good day for Sauvignon Blanc.
it sure is. But if the bees go, so do we. It's really, bees are more essential to Mother Nature than humans. And so it's really incumbent on us to recognize that it's not just us, but we live in a wonderful planet here. So we want to preserve, if not enhance it. So I'm trying to bring life back into the soil and also into the ambient environment. Again, I saw birds eating Roundup, and that's got to be bad for them. It's going to be bad for us. So that was my epiphany. I said, no, I'm not going to let this happen anymore. So I said, no more pesticides, herbicides, chemical fertilizers.
And what was the vineyard that turned you on in Lyon to name your vineyard Lyon?
It was just
Isn't this his last name?
because
I think that's his last name.
That's my last name.
Okay,
but
well,
it's a famous
It's
town.
still,
yeah.
I know. I mean, I was looking at it as
That's awesome. That's good, John. You're good.
No. I do like my last name. It's the second largest.
Well, I'm
city
calling
in
you
France.
Lyon.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But I call this
And the
Lyon.
culinary center of France, right?
It
Lyon
is.
and
I've been
Lyon.
there once.
Spelled the same, aren't they?
But I'm really happy with the name. I hope the environmentalism catches on, and think that's a really important thing to do in agriculture now. I see that trend going on into the stores, people choosing organic. And we also, as you found out, John, we're in the local farmers market because we also have a farm there. We sell produce. So we not only grow wine grapes, but we grow garlic, arugula, vegetables, tomatoes, etc. And we are the only ones pouring our wine at the farmers market because we also sell produce too. And it's all certified organic CCOF.
Yeah. Please tell Ashley Ramsey she did a great job.
Yeah, thank you. I will. And so we'll continue. We're finding some good headway selling our less expensive wines at farmers markets. They're very receptive to it. It seems like a good
it's perfect
marketing opportunity, and we may even expand the garden farming part if this continues and find more.
So which markets are you at? Are you in
here Friday morning?
Friday morning in Sonoma.
And we're in Sebastopol and Cloverdale for now.
Cool.
And we just barely have enough to service that. We also have chickens. That's our animal on the property. So we also sell chickens that obviously are free ranging, but they really help with, as you know, the soil. They poop and they pee and they also eat leaf hoppers.
Oh, yeah.
And we like that part.
Are they out in the vineyard? Or they?
Yes, they are. So we'll move the coop depending on if we have an infestation of leafhoppers. We have not really seen that infestation level this year.
It's because they're in balance.
I guess
They must be doing something right.
So we're right now. I have moved them to the old vine cab because they're starting to grab at the grapes, and that's a no-go.
Yes, that's when
we're moving them to the high trellis blocks now and just say, please don't jump too high and munch on grapes, please.
Everything's still green up there, right? Nothing's changing colors yet, is it?
Yeah, but darn those things.
They'll eat the green grapes?
Yeah, they're pecking away. I know. Now they're a pest. Yeah. Yeah, please just lay eggs and lay off of the
times for some
grapes,
fricassee.
Bite the hand that feeds you chickens.
So
don't eat the Cabernet.
Yeah, please don't eat the Cabernet. So we feed them, of course, organic feed too, but we try to have them rummage and eat as much. And of course, those eggs have very good nutrition value, but more than anything else, as I tell people, we have the happiest hens in Sonoma County because they're not caged at all, and they're roaming around, and they get to do their thing and be fed.
It's amazing how little feed the chickens will eat if they're free range like that. Right. They would much rather dig through, find little bugs and grains and stuff on the ground and forage and, eat grasses and leaf hoppers than eat, even if it's good organic, I feed my chickens good organic, pellets. But
we throw them some feed.
But they would,
we do
here and there. Yeah, and you got to, you can keep them alive. But they'll eat everything else before they eat the feed, right? Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like humans. You want humans to eat like real foods rather than processed or pellets. So it's good that they go and rummage in the land. It's good for their health, and it's good for our vineyard, and if anything, bring a little more organic matter into the soil. But they also kind of clear the deck a little bit too. They kind of you don't need to mow those areas. They already do the mowing.
Little mowing, little micro cultivation.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, can you talk a little bit about some of the other wines you make?
Yeah. So we would
reference the website at this point, and then you can tell us a little bit about it.
Terreno.com, and you'll see it all right then and there. We make a variety of wines because we have a tasting room and we have wine club, and people like different blends, styles, choices, etc. But our specialty is Cabernet Sauvignon and Sauvignon Blanc from Alexander Valley. I make about 3 or 4 different styles. The Sauvignon Blanc we're having today is from the old vine block that was originally planned by the late Rodney Strong. Here I'm making a little more of a restraint style. It's only 13.8, 13.7 alcohol, just a light kiss of oak. But I make stainless steel only I have a Musquet selection of Sauvignon Blanc I call Sansara, and I have Luna Llena, which means full moon because it was harvested on a full moon and part of that whole biodynamic intrigue.
It was a fruit day.
We also have our what I call wholesale Sauvignon Blanc, which is called Cuvée Acero, and you'll find it here in town. A few restaurants, name drop Della Santina, and Jacobs has it and pours it proudly. And Cabernet
Love
Sauvignon.
sitting at the bar at Della Santina.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Is that
Rob has
Enoteca.
incredible
Enoteca.
Enoteca.
Yeah. Nice.
I love drinking his Italian selections. And he has good Nebbiolos
He's always
Brings you back to your teenage days.
Yes.
well, and he's always good. Like if you just let him pick you a bottle, you're never disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
the
generally-
price, the value to the quality is always really good. Because I don't know anything about him, so I can't pick. Just
And shout out to Della Santina in general as far as value to quality is what you can get on the plaza these days.
Yeah.
And classic. Now I want some pesto.
There you go, Sam. Drop over for lunch today. Sit in the backyard. in that
It's
patio.
already sounding good already.
It's perfect.
No Nebbiolo today. It'd be white wine.
Yeah,
only.
it's Sauv Blanc and dry rosé day.
Yeah.
That's
When we were
Friday.
tourists, I fell in love with that back patio so much. I did our backyard pretty much like that in Chicago. So you could go back to Della Santina in downtown Lincoln Park.
So, Mark, what are you thinking about the wine business in general right now? Are you
tough times.
tough times?
Yeah,
Do you
some
see
people won't survive
Are there
this.
okay? We want to keep going on that, but also, do you see some things that kind of excite you, or that what gives you positiveness? Also,
Oh, okay.
I mean, I want both. Trust
I'll
me.
try to say the silver lining in the cloud is I think this is a wonderful time to rip off blocks that aren't really making either really good wine or the tons per acre is too low to be economical. So I think we're having to rethink how we farm. How can we farm organically but more economically? So that's our challenge now is how can we make because prices on grapes are going down, prices of wine can't inflate anymore. If anything, it needs to go down. So now our biggest challenge is how can we make organic farming and organic wines thrive, even though our costs are higher. So that's a big challenge. And my quick answer in the vineyard is you have to be out there more often. And like today or yesterday, we don't need to do the leaf pulling like we used to. So I've been really telling them, look, let's just leave a little more leaves. I'll deal with the pyrazines later. But really, let's try to do less intervention and less labor on the vine if you can. But you have to really be on top of it. You can't just say, just do that and forget about it, because then you may have powdery mildew crop up. So you really have to pay more attention than ever in the vine in order to farm more economically, organically. Second is, as I mentioned before, there's too much wine out there. So what can we do? We have to figure a way to reduce the amount of acreage in California. In general, I think here we just have, if you're not making a good or a great wine from a couple of blocks, why are you farming those blocks in Sonoma and Napa? This is a high quality wine region. So perhaps a different perspective, but take it out. I've already taken out 7 acres, either because they became too diseased or the wine just wasn't that great. So I ripped it out. And I'm glad I have.
And so are you thinking you'll leave it fallow and see how things go? Or
Yes.
do you have a plan that you want to go after it with?
The plan is leave it fallow and play it by ear and see what the trends are. I am intrigued with replanting some with Italian white varietals because I think they're going to do really well. Vermentino, Albarino's looking promising in my experimental block. So I'm kind of thinking we could be looking beyond Chardonnay Sauvignon Blanc model in Sonoma County. And I also think, too, for me, it may be that farmers market does better than growing wine grapes, so we'll plant more specialty crops for local restaurants. We sell our produce to Dry Creek Kitchen in Healdsburg. So I think there's room for us to expand out of the monocultural, and as Maynard Namarine says, more promiscuous culture, which is growing things other than
that's got to go on a shirt.
That's going to really catch on quickly, won't it?
Promiscuous culture, I dig it.
So you two guys had a priceless reaction when he said tear out vines. You both dinged and laughed. Your thoughts on that, Sam? You tearing up?
I mean, I think Mark said it great. If you're paying Napa or Sonoma farming costs and not making a wine worthy of putting Napa or Sonoma on the label, then perhaps it is time to rethink what's planted there. At the very least, how you're growing it, and then if that doesn't work, putting something else there, putting in promiscuous farming, poly farming. But it's poly farming because there's a implied consent, informed consent.
Okay.
I mean,
it's not just promiscuous.
I know. I thought that would catch on.
I dig it.
It gets people exciting, does it?
But there's lots of things that can grow well in Sonoma and Napa, and that would grow well in places where maybe the chosen variety that you have won't ever, and there's nothing you can do about it, but you planted it because at a time the market allowed it to happen, drove it to happen, and now the market adjusted it, and we need to adjust what's in the ground.
Right.
Your thoughts, Bart?
there are wines out there in the market that have a appellation that there are wines out in the market where they have an appellation and they're at a set price. You could argue whether it's too much or too little. But then there's wines out there in the marketplace that are dumpster fires. And if it says Sonoma Mountain on it and, it's $12 a bottle, that doesn't do us any good for establishing what we're talking about is quality. And so if you're able, if that's what you're doing with it, maybe you should be thinking about, should you be making wine out of it? Because it doesn't help the whole system. And we are a little bit of a system. We need to raise each other up and remember that, Mark, you said it, quality, right? Like you can grow $12 bottles of wine in places other than here.
Yeah, we can't compete with higher
nor
production.
Do you want to.
Nor do we want to in the Central Valley or in Chile or in Argentina or arguably Spain and Italy. So
Australia.
Really in Australia. So we should really say, what is the best wine we can possibly make in the Napa-Sonoma region?
So why does it seem like that's such a hard decision to make, tearing out?
Because it's a big investment to develop a vineyard,
and years worth of work,
and years and time, and it's also tied into property values. Unlike a vegetable garden, or and I don't know if an orchard counts, but when you have a vineyard and your property is assessed, the assessor takes into account the value of the vineyard, and that's why planted acres are worth more than unplanted acres, right?
And probably not necessarily what you're being paid for that.
It has nothing. No, it's just the cost of the infrastructure, essentially, right? So it does not take into account the fact that you can't sell your overcropped varietal X for anything close to the farming costs. Or it's so it's a tough decision. Plus, you're not making enough money off of it, and it costs money to pull vineyards out too. Especially in Sonoma County. So, okay, it's complicated. It's complicated.
It sounds it.
It's complicated.
I mean, it's got to be a hard decision-making parameter there.
Yeah, but to me, it was a no-brainer because those particular blocks, they just weren't making stellar wines, and one of them was starting to get disease from fan leaf virus, and that was just the kiss of death. So it had fatal virus.
Well, it's not the first time stuff's been ripped out and replanted either.
No, as to quote the quote machine, Phil Kateri, the vineyard is eternal, the vines are not. The vineyard will survive longer than the vines will. Something eventually, whether it's a virus or a tractor or an economy, will take those vines out. And then eventually, if it's a worthy site, something will go back in there and it'll come back to life.
So tell us about your tasting rooms. One in San Francisco, right?
We have was called an urban tasting room, and it's in San Francisco in the Jackson Square area, close to the Transamerica Title building. I just thought there were just too much competition, too many winery tasting rooms here. And also, I'm believing more and more that it's very expensive to be a San Francisco tourist, rent a car, come all the way up to Napa or Sonoma, drop $400 for a tasting experience.
Or more.
And then go
buy
back.
a lot of wine.
And, who's going to be the designated driver? Who's going to... You don't want to drive buzzed in any situation. So instead, you could just take an Uber from your hotel room and have a tasting of some really great Cabernet and Sauvignon Blancs. And we are very conveniently located for that. And also, we're really trying to have more and more wine club members from the San Francisco area, and thought, let's bring it to them and make them feel very welcome and very special and part of our wine club too, and just bring Sonoma to San Francisco in essence. So that's my gambit, you could say. We could talk 5 years from now and see if that was a good or not good idea, but increasingly there seems to be more and more trend toward urban tasting rooms and less people driving another hour or 2 hours from where they're staying to the wine country. And I do think, especially Napa, there's a lot more sticker shock with the by the time you're done with the winery, it costs you $400 or $500 if you take a bottle of wine with you. So I think those days are dwindling, and we're seeing that trend in general. I kind of miss the old days of the 80s. You just show up at Sebastiani, you got this little thimbleful in Louis Martini, and you would just try every little flavor, and you weren't charged a cent to try anything. And we somehow moved to a much more expensive model, and I think we're seeing some resistance.
Were there any other tasting rooms in the past? When did they start coming on the plaza?
On the plaza?
Yeah, around.
Plaza.
The late 90s, I think.
Yeah, late 90s.
I mean, the tasting room model, as we know it, kind of went hand in hand with the Granholm decision to allow wineries to ship to customers direct all over the country. So it made sense then to have
it also started
tasting rooms like we do now, right?
Right. Well, it also started where you could operate multiple wineries under one bond, right? So that also allowed people to have wineries without their own facilities, right? And then when that happened, then you needed a place to sell it, because not everybody read your email.
Right.
I mean, that's what I've heard. I don't know. Maybe
everybody reads your emails, Bart. I do. I'm looking for the typos. Only to make myself feel better for the typos that we had.
Are you an editor?
No.
You have a red pen?
I need editors.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, we all need editors. That's why we have podcasts instead.
But yeah, I mean, John, that's a good point. I mean, the Sebastiani was so perfectly, but the tourism was different then also.
It sure was.
You know, I mean,
Also-
people didn't say come here like they do now to eat and drink. I always think about what the one guy said, you know, in Napa Valley. They wanted him to come up during the day, but they wanted him to go home at sunset.
Right.
You know,
Ren Harris or
no, that was the guy that Danny works for.
Tor.
Kenward?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said the whole thing is that they wanted everybody to. They didn't care if there wasn't restaurants or hotels. They just wanted to come up and buy wine and leave.
And then leave. Yeah.
Leave us alone at night.
Yeah.
In our valley.
The interesting thing, Mark, is I hear of there's tasting rooms more on the East Bay. Is there anybody else in San Francisco proper, downtown San Francisco, doing what you're doing yet?
Well, there's Jax's in south of Market.
Okay.
And a few others. I think Walla Creek was out in Ghirardelli. But you do see, like Montelena is in I think I forget the name of the hotel in the Union Square area. And I think...
that makes sense in a hotel.
Who's that crazy guy at Buena Vista? Oh.
Jean Charles.
Yeah, Charles has a tasting room at the Ritz.
Of course he does.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Bart, I'll turn you off.
Yeah, I just have to use the bathroom.
Go ahead. There you go. All right. Well, that's okay.
To
Cool.
the back door and to the right.
And so, Sam, shout outs, Vinyl Sundays, etc.
Vinyl Sundays. We're not doing another one until August 4th.
Okay.
It's not that far away.
Which I guess is not that far away now. With Stanley Mouse
Appreciation Day.
Yeah, Stanley Mouse Appreciation Day.
Music from Where's West?
Where's West, which is Maddie Mishna. If you're familiar with, follow Bob Weir on Instagram or anything. Maddie, he's been on stage with Bob a bunch. He kind of took him under his wing as a teenager and brought him into the studio, and now he's off on his own with the record deal and the whole deal. So his band playing. We got
food by Ali Kai,
your neighbor there at the radio station.
Absolutely. How nice are they?
Fiorello is going to make a big paella. We learned our lesson at last Stanley Mouse Appreciation Day, and it was hotter than
hell,
cooler than it is today, but still hot as shit. So we're starting a little later. We're going to start about 4:00, kind of go into the evening, catch a little.
You're going to have a bunch
weather.
of mouse stuff for sale,
and we're going to,
cool.
Not that we don't anyway, but we're going to take everything down off the walls, and everything that we're going to hang up in here is going to be Stanley art. New art that he's got for sale.
Excellent.
And it's awesome. Turning the place into an art gallery for the
Sunday, August 4th.
The day.
All right.
And
see,
then,
Mark, you're going to have to come over here. Sunday, August 4th. It's a big party all day long.
Really?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Put it on his calendar.
The Stanley Mouse Appreciation Day.
Music, food, and art.
Oh, yes. I know about Stanley.
Yeah, everybody knows.
Everybody knows about Stanley. Even if you don't, that's the thing we tell people all the time in here, is even if you don't know the name,
you know the work.
You know the work. You've seen the work. It's ubiquitous in American life.
You've listened to Journey. You've listened to Steve Miller Band. Right. You've listened to all the logos that he created. Of course, maybe this band called the Grateful Dead.
The Grateful Dead.
Maybe.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Maybe
once or twice.
Saw them once or twice.
Bart, how's everything going in Glen Ellen at the tasting tank?
Everything at the tank is good. We're continuing to get reservations and people coming to town. The little bit in Sonoma Magazine continues to pay off because I think every single hotel in Sonoma has it. Sonoma County has it. So there's someone will say, we want to come to the tank. So that's great. I love that. Keep it coming.
Mark, are you familiar with this? Tell him the story about where you are.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, so you know where Jack London Village is?
Yes.
And that used to be a winery.
Yes.
So on the opposite side is the Eric Ross tasting room.
Yes.
And then there's an old fermentation tank, redwood tank. That's between 120 and 140 years old. And that's where my new tasting room is.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's still new to me.
Within the tank?
Yeah, yeah.
And how many gallon
and
tank
it was
is
across the street, and when they sold across the street, the gentleman had it, kind of built onto a tractor barn. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is.
I mean,
is it open now?
Yeah, we're open by appointment.
It's called the Tank.
No, it's called the Dane Cellars Tasting Room, but
Okay.
I
We
refer
call
to
it
it
the
as
tank.
the Tank.
Because it's a tank.
Yeah, because everybody wanted to call it a barrel, and I'm like, you would be a perfect person. Like, those are not barrels; those are tanks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? There is a difference.
You want to be technically correct.
Correct.
Is it,
Mark would have corrected
by
it.
appointment only or drop-ins?
Oh, we're trying to do some drop-ins. You can drop in if I'm sitting there working at my desk.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if my car's ever there, you stop by and say.
And any specialty wines that you?
They're everything special,
Everything.
Mark.
Okay.
Come on, you know how that
Well, I
goes.
thought there's a certain niche that you.
No, all my wines are Sonoma Valley based.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyway, what about you? You guys have any special events that you want to shout out? Any
Yes.
big releases coming out?
We are having a Bastille Day party.
Oh, right.
In our tasting room on the 13th of July. And then August 10th, we're having a pre-harvest party. We're just bringing a pizza oven and having very summery foods with it, salads, of course, and
Things from the garden?
things from the garden will
Cool.
be there too. And the
Pre-harvest sounds scary.
pre-harvest, yeah, it could get hot there, but that's
No,
part of the risk.
I'm just timing wise.
Timing wise, like it's
What the
already
hell happened
pre-harvest.
to summer?
I don't know who posted on.
Well,
Was
this
it-
is August 10th. You have to realize this all formed back in June when we were looking at some pretty cool weather. But
The fog hadn't broken yet.
yeah, but if we do a harvest, it'll be Sauvignon Blanc. If anything, they may be intrigued. But the idea I'm trying to do for Wine Club and everybody else is come taste a Sauv Blanc grape before it's harvested. Come taste, see what Cabernet looks like, nice red color, veraison, etc. I think a lot of people haven't really seen vines before they give birth or tasted the berries.
So you're gonna go and like pick some fruit, however it is, on August 9th and bring it into the tasting room in the city for that event.
Oh no, it's going to be in Cloverdale.
Oh, it's up at the okay.
vineyard. So we'll probably bus some of our wine club members from San Francisco up there and take them back. And anybody else who wants to just drive
Oh, cool.
there,
Yeah.
we can participate. And again, it's really informal, more fun. Just pizza oven and just garden produce and my famous Caesar salad, and that will be the crux of it. But I really want to say, here is a glass of Sauvignon Blanc from this block, and here is taste the grapes, taste the old vine Sauv Blanc grapes, and they taste really good at that point in time. So that's what I'm really trying to convey, to give them a sense of harvest or pre-harvest. So that's the next event.
Cool.
We haven't gotten past that one as far as special events, but
That's
we
pretty good.
try to be a little less expensive and a little more fun and more informal.
And social media, you're on Instagram.
Yes, Instagram,
Facebook.
Echo Terreno Wines, Echo Terreno.
Let's spell that for those folks out there in Radio Land.
ECOTERRENO. And all the iterations of vines and wines from there. You'll see it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really want to have wine club members not only have fun, but also educational too. We're constantly teaching them about organic farming also and show them what we're up to. And when they see it in reality, what it's like, i.e. we're not tilling, things don't look all neat and sanitized and not a weed can be seen.
Good.
I'm trying to change
Misplaced
the
plants.
perception of it's okay
Plants out of
to
place.
not have everything just neatly tilled, because we're we're non-till.
Well, you're retraining the tourists also.
Yes.
You know, this is not the way a vineyard should look. You don't want strips of death. You don't want it nice and clean. You want it looking like it's organic, and it is.
Right. You don't need scorched earth. But I got to tell you, I'd say there's a lot of winemaker bias and grape buyer bias. They think, oh, if you got some weeds here, you must be a sloppy farmer. Or look, he didn't mow it. Oh, look, it's not this neat, trim, hygienic looking vine. And we need to change that mindset to, okay, they didn't till it. Well, that means that they're actually sequestering carbon. That also means that these are healthier soils because they're not losing their organic matter. If anything, they're building organic matter. So one of our goals, emissions, is to build organic matter in the soil, not to take it away. And we measure it every now and then to see if we're making progress or not.
There you go. Cool. Perfect. Anything else, guys?
No, I think that's about it.
Stay cool out there.
Yeah.
Listeners, stay cool, and I hope you had a great...
Stay hydrated.
Drink a lot of Sauvignon Blanc.
Sauvignon Blanc, water, Sauvignon Blanc,
water,
rinse and repeat.
Water.
Over the 4th of July, hopefully we have a great, safe, no fires kind of thing. I mean, when are they going to just start doing drones?
I'm ready for the drones to take over the fireworks show.
Me too.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah.
The drone,
just
drone
bring the
show,
Grateful Dead show.
Yeah, the drone show. Pretty amazing.
All right. Well, hey, for everybody on the Winemakers team, I'm John Myers. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy.